In a world overflowing with connections, why do so many of us still feel alone? Friendship isn't about convenience. It's about resonance, an unseen energy that nourishes the soul. Loneliness is not your enemy. It's an invitation to meet the most important person you've been avoiding, yourself. Friendship is far more than a social agreement, more than people deciding to spend time together out of convenience. It is not built merely on similar interests or shared experiences. At its core, friendship is an invisible resonance, a meeting of frequencies that align beyond the surface of personality. When two people connect in authenticity, their energies begin to harmonize, and that harmony is felt as safety, trust, laughter, and ease. It is not something you can fully measure with logic, because it transcends reason. True friendship is the vibration of two souls recognizing each other and saying, "I see you, not just for what the world sees, but for the truth of who you are." When you enter into a real friendship, you are stepping into an exchange that changes both people. Every word, every shared silence, every moment of presence alters the state of the other. If one person is heavy with sadness, the other can lighten that energy simply by holding a space of compassion. If one person is filled with joy, that joy multiplies as it resonates with the other. This is because human beings are not static, isolated entities. We are constantly broadcasting and receiving frequencies. Our thoughts, emotions, and intentions ripple outward. Friendship is the conscious or unconscious agreement to stay within each other's field of influence and allow that mutual shaping to occur. The reason so many people feel drained in certain relationships is because the exchange of energy is not balanced. Instead of resonance, there is dissonance. Instead of upliftment, there is depletion. And yet, when a true friendship exists, the energy exchanged is expansive. Both individuals feel more alive, more at peace, more themselves. This is why you can spend hours with certain friends and walk away feeling nourished, as though something within you was restored. It is also why you can spend a short amount of time with others and feel exhausted, because the quality of energy exchanged is far more significant than the quantity of time. Understanding friendship as energy also allows us to release the idea that it must always be constant in physical presence. Sometimes the people who impact us most deeply are not the ones we see every day. The resonance of their energy, the imprint of their authenticity, lingers even when they are far away. It can be months or years, and when you reconnect, the flow feels as natural as if no time had passed. That is the power of true frequency alignment. It does not erode with distance, because it is not bound by time or space in the way the physical world is. Think about the moments when you have laughed uncontrollably with a friend. That laughter was not simply about the joke or the story. It was energy being released, barriers being dissolved, hearts sinking into the same rhythm. Or consider when a friend sat silently beside you in pain, without words but with presence. That stillness was not emptiness. It was energy holding, stabilizing, affirming. In both instances, what mattered was not the external situation, but the internal exchange. The true currency of friendship is not favors or obligations. It is the transfer of presence, the flow of emotion, the dance of energy. And when we become more conscious of this, we begin to choose differently. We begin to ask ourselves, who expands my energy and who contracts it? Who awakens my authentic self and who pushes me back into masks and roles? Friendship ceases to be about convenience or proximity and becomes about alignment. This shift does not make us judgmental, it makes us aware. Because when we understand that energy exchange is inevitable, we become intentional about the energies we allow into our lives. At the same time, friendship invites responsibility. If you wish for friendships that uplift and nourish you, you must first embody that same energy. You must learn to resonate with authenticity, because like attracts like. If you are always hiding, always pretending, always broadcasting fear or bitterness, you will attract relationships that mirror those frequencies. But when you choose to step into openness, kindness, and presence, you begin to magnetize friendships of the same quality. Energy does not lie. You cannot fake resonance. You can only cultivate it within yourself and allow it to be reflected back. This perspective also dissolves the illusion of ownership. We do not own our friends, nor do they own us. We are participants in a flow of energy, and the flow may shift, evolve, or even come to an end. When a friendship naturally fades, it does not mean failure. It simply means that the frequencies no longer resonate in the same way. Instead of clinging, we can honor the exchange that was and trust that the resonance fulfilled its purpose. Every encounter imprints us, and nothing is truly lost. To see friendship as an energy exchange is to elevate it from mere social interaction to a sacred act. It is to recognize that each conversation, each shared glance, each laugh or tear is an opportunity to alter the field of another human being. It is to understand that we are shaping each other constantly, whether with intention or without it. And it is to realize that the friendships we cultivate are in many ways mirrors of our own inner state. If we desire depth, we must embody depth. If we desire honesty, we must embody honesty. If we desire joy, we must embody joy. Loneliness is often perceived as a void, an emptiness that swallows joy and creates a deep ache within the human heart. It is something most people resist, something they try to escape by filling their days with distractions, social media, entertainment, or the endless pursuit of being surrounded by others. Yet, loneliness carries within it a hidden gift. It is not simply a punishment or a sign of being unwanted. It is a sacred invitation to meet the one person you often neglect, the self. When the noise of the world quiets and the presence of others is absent, what is left is the truth of who you are without masks, without roles, without external validation. To sit in loneliness is to be confronted with yourself. It is to hear the unspoken thoughts that surface when silence replaces chatter. For many, this confrontation feels unbearable because it brings into awareness the fears, the wounds, and the insecurities that have long been buried. But instead of running from it, what if loneliness was redefined as a teacher? What if the space it creates is not emptiness but opportunity? When there is no one else around to mirror you, you are left to discover your own reflection. It is in this reflection that transformation begins. Loneliness asks you to examine the way you relate to yourself. If being alone feels unbearable, it often reveals that the relationship you have with yourself is fractured. You may discover that you rely on others to feel worthy, to feel loved, to feel significant. This dependency masks a deeper need, the need to reconnect with your own inner being. The moment you begin to sit with yourself, not in judgment but in curiosity, loneliness transforms. It ceases to be a void and becomes a doorway guiding you inward. In that inward journey, you begin to notice the thoughts you habitually think. You begin to observe the emotions you habitually feel. Loneliness creates the stillness that allows you to witness yourself without the usual distractions. For the first time, you might hear the quiet whispers of intuition that were drowned out by noise. You might uncover passions that had been suppressed because life's busyness left no room for them. You might also see the wounds that need healing, the beliefs that keep you small, the fears that keep you seeking validation externally. Loneliness illuminates what was hidden, and in that illumination lies the possibility of transformation. There is a profound paradox within loneliness. The more you resist it, the heavier it feels, but the more you embrace it, the more it becomes a source of power. In embracing loneliness, you learn to generate your own sense of completeness. You discover that fulfillment does not come from others giving you attention, but from you giving yourself attention. You realize that love does not only flow from outside sources, but can also be cultivated from within. You see that your own presence, when honored and cherished, is enough to anchor you. This shift is not about rejecting human connection, because connection is vital to the human experience. Rather, it is about arriving at connection from a place of wholeness rather than desperation. When you have faced your own loneliness and learned to find richness within it, you no longer enter friendships and relationships to fill a void. You enter them to share the fullness that you have cultivated within. Loneliness, then, becomes the bridge from dependency to empowerment. Think of loneliness as a mirror. It shows you where you still seek externally what you have not given internally. It reveals where you abandon yourself in order to be accepted by others. It shows you where you silence your truth to maintain a connection. By reflecting these patterns back to you, loneliness calls you to heal them. The healing happens when you choose to no longer abandon yourself. When you begin to sit with your emotions instead of escaping them, when you begin to nurture your mind with thoughts that uplift rather than thoughts that diminish, when you begin to honor your own needs with the same love and care you extend to others. This journey transforms solitude into a sanctuary. The same silence that once felt empty begins to feel expansive. The same aloneness that once felt painful begins to feel liberating. You discover the joy of your own company, the creativity that emerges when your mind is still, the peace that fills you when you stop resisting what is. In this way, loneliness ceases to be loneliness at all. It becomes solitude, and solitude is a sacred state where you encounter your truest self. And from this truest self, your entire life changes. You no longer chase after relationships out of fear of being alone. You no longer accept connections that diminish your energy simply to avoid silence. You no longer seek external validation to remind you of your worth. Instead, you carry your worth with you because you discovered it in the quiet. You radiate presence because you learned to be present with yourself first. You offer depth in friendship because you dove deep within yourself and now know how to meet others at that same depth. Loneliness, when embraced, gives birth to resilience. It teaches you that you can withstand the silence, that you can survive without the constant presence of others, and that you can thrive when rooted in yourself. It invites you to redefine love, not as something only given by others, but as something you generate from your own being. It reshapes your understanding of connection, showing you that the most important connection you will ever cultivate is the one with yourself. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many see it as weakness, as if opening yourself to others makes you fragile, exposed, or easily wounded. Yet true vulnerability is not fragility. It is courage in its purest form. It is the willingness to stand without armor, without masks, and without rehearsed lines, and to allow another human being to see you as you are. In a world that constantly teaches people to perform, to hide their imperfections, and to curate their identities, vulnerability becomes an act of rebellion. It becomes the doorway through which authentic human connection flows. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you are not collapsing into self-pity, nor are you surrendering your strength. You are acknowledging your humanity. You are saying, I am more than the image I project, more than the roles I play, more than the achievements that decorate me. Vulnerability is the act of stepping out of the story of perfection and into the reality of truth. And paradoxically, it is in that truth that strength resides, because no one can truly harm you when you are no longer hiding. What others attack are the masks, what others misunderstand are the personas, but when you live in truth, there is nothing to protect, nothing to defend. Think of the moments in your life when you felt deeply connected to another person. Chances are those moments were not built on flawless performance or carefully crafted words. They were built on raw honesty. They were born when you admitted your fears, your doubts, your mistakes, and someone responded not with judgment, but with understanding. In that moment, the walls between you and them dissolved. This is the essence of vulnerability. It removes the barriers that separate us, revealing the shared humanity that lies beneath. The irony is that most people long for deep connection, yet they resist the very thing that makes it possible. They want to be understood, but are unwilling to reveal themselves. They want intimacy, but are afraid of being seen. They want closeness, but hide behind emotional armor. Vulnerability requires a leap of faith. It asks you to step into uncertainty, to open your heart without guarantees, to risk being misunderstood or rejected. But in that risk lies the possibility of profound connection. Without vulnerability, connection remains superficial. With it, connection becomes transformative. Vulnerability also reshapes the relationship you have with yourself. Many carry an inner critic that constantly demands perfection, that shames every flaw, that hides every wound. When you choose vulnerability, you choose to silence that critic. You choose to meet yourself with compassion instead of condemnation. You give yourself permission to be unfinished, imperfect, and still worthy of love. And when you begin to treat yourself this way, you naturally extend the same grace to others. Your friendships deepen because you are no longer demanding perfection from yourself or them. Instead, you are creating a space where truth is enough, where imperfection is welcomed, where authenticity is celebrated. It is important to understand that vulnerability is not about exposing yourself recklessly to everyone. It is not about spilling your secrets indiscriminately or seeking validation through oversharing. Vulnerability is discernment. It is knowing when to open, with whom to open, and why. It is about offering your truth in spaces where truth has the chance to be received with reverence. The strength of vulnerability lies in its intentionality. It is not weakness, it is wisdom in action. At the core of vulnerability is freedom. When you are no longer trying to maintain an image, you are free to be who you are. When you no longer fear being exposed, you live without the weight of secrecy. When you no longer measure your worth by others' approval, you become unshakable. Vulnerability liberates you from the exhausting game of pretending, and in that liberation, life becomes lighter, more authentic, and more joyful. Consider how vulnerability impacts leadership and influence. A leader who pretends to have all the answers creates distance, because those around them feel their own struggles are invisible or unacceptable. But a leader who admits uncertainty, who acknowledges failure, and who shows their humanity inspires trust. They create a culture where others feel safe to bring their full selves. Vulnerability in leadership does not diminish respect, it deepens it, because respect does not grow from the illusion of perfection, it grows from the courage to stand in authenticity. Vulnerability also transforms relationships that feel stuck. Many conflicts persist not because of irreconcilable differences, but because both sides are unwilling to be vulnerable. They defend their positions, protect their egos, and hide their fears. But the moment one person says, "This hurt me," or "I was afraid," or "I want to understand," the energy shifts. The defenses lower, empathy rises, and the possibility of resolution emerges. Vulnerability opens the door to healing, because healing cannot happen where walls remain intact. There is also a spiritual dimension to vulnerability. To be vulnerable is to surrender control, to trust that you are safe even when you are exposed. It is to place your faith in something larger than appearances, whether you call that love, life, or the greater intelligence of the universe. Vulnerability is the willingness to exist without guarantees, to live in the mystery of the unknown, to embrace uncertainty as part of the human journey. It is, in many ways, a form of surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of authenticity. In a culture obsessed with perfection, vulnerability is revolutionary. It reminds us that perfection is an illusion and that true connection is built not on flawless exteriors but on honest interiors. It teaches us that the cracks are where the light enters, that the tears are where compassion flows, that the trembling voice is often the voice that speaks most powerfully. Vulnerability is the bridge between loneliness and connection, between fear and love, between isolation and belonging. It is not the absence of strength. It is the expression of strength in its most human form. From the moment we are born, the world begins to shape our perception of self and other. We are given names, identities, cultures, and roles that help us define who we are. These constructs create boundaries, lines between me and you, us and them. Over time, these boundaries become so ingrained that we begin to believe they are absolute. We see ourselves as separate beings moving through a fragmented world, struggling for connection while fighting against isolation. Yet this perception is not truth. It is an illusion. Beneath the surface of individuality, beneath the roles and identities, there exists a deeper reality where separation does not exist. We are fields of consciousness, interconnected in ways that transcend what the senses can perceive. Separation is the greatest illusion of the human condition, and it is also the root of much of our suffering. When we believe we are separate, we experience loneliness as abandonment rather than as invitation. We compete with one another, fearing there is not enough for all. We judge and compare, forgetting that what we see in another is only a reflection of what lives within us. We create hierarchies, divisions, and conflicts, all because we believe the lines between us are real. Yet, when we step into awareness, when we expand our perception, we begin to see that what divides us is far smaller than what unites us. Science has already revealed that on a fundamental level, everything is energy. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the body you inhabit, all of it is composed of vibrating particles moving in patterns that are interconnected with the entire universe. If you zoom in far enough, you do not find walls or borders. You find fields that merge, overlap, and exchange information. Human beings are no exception. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you hold radiates outward as frequency, influencing the field around you. In this sense, you are never truly isolated, because your very being is constantly interacting with the energies of others. Consider the times when you have walked into a room and felt tension before a word was spoken, or when you met someone and instantly sensed warmth or heaviness. These experiences are reminders that we are not separate entities sealed within our bodies. We are porous fields of energy, constantly giving and receiving. What you feel is not only your own, it is also a reflection of the larger field you inhabit. When you understand this, you begin to recognize that separation is only a construct of the mind, not the truth of existence. The illusion of separation also distorts how we experience relationships. We imagine that love must come from outside us, as if it is a scarce resource given only by others. We chase after acceptance, approval, and validation, forgetting that love is not something to acquire but something to remember. Love is the natural state that arises when the illusion of separation dissolves. It is what remains when the barriers between self and other fall away. When you sit with a friend and feel seen, when you hold someone's hand and feel whole, when you share silence and it feels full, these are moments when separation temporarily disappears and you touch the reality of connection that was always there. The illusion of separation not only shapes personal relationships but also collective ones. Nations, races, religions, and cultures often define themselves by how they are different from others. This creates division, conflict, and fear, as if humanity is broken into fragments competing for survival. But if you look deeper, you will see that all human beings share the same fundamental desires: to be safe, to be loved, to belong, to find meaning. The languages may differ, the customs may differ, but the essence remains the same. To awaken from the illusion of separation is to see humanity not as fragmented tribes, but as one living organism, diverse in expression yet united in essence. The belief in separation also affects how we relate to nature. We imagine ourselves as separate from the earth, treating it as something to dominate, control, or exploit. Yet the truth is that we are not separate from the environment. We are the environment. The air in your lungs is borrowed from the trees. The water in your blood once flowed in rivers. The minerals in your bones came from the soil. The illusion tells you that you live on the earth, but the reality is that you live as the earth. To remember this is to restore balance, because you no longer act as a stranger to nature, but as a part of its unfolding. Breaking free from the illusion of separation requires a shift in awareness. It requires seeing beyond appearances and into essence. Meditation, deep presence, and authentic connection are all practices that dissolve the boundaries of the mind. When you sit in stillness and expand your awareness, you begin to sense the interconnectedness of all things. You feel the space between your thoughts and realize that it is the same space that exists between the stars. When you listen deeply to another person, you feel that their emotions move through you as if they were your own. When you open your heart in compassion, you sense that giving to another is no different from giving to yourself. The illusion of separation will persist as long as you identify only with the surface of who you are. If you believe you are only your name, your story, your body, your culture, you will continue to feel divided. But when you remember that you are also consciousness, energy, presence, then you begin to see that others are not truly other. They are extensions of the same field of awareness, wearing different forms, playing different roles, but rooted in the same source. This realization changes everything. Conflict loses its grip because you can no longer dehumanize someone you see as yourself. Loneliness softens because you realize you are never truly alone. Fear diminishes because you understand that life itself supports you, that you are part of a larger whole that is infinitely intelligent. Love expands because it is no longer conditional or selective. It becomes your natural way of being, a recognition of what already connects you to everything and everyone around you. We live in a time when connection is more abundant than ever before, yet more fragile than it has ever been. With a single tap on a screen, you can speak to someone across the world, share a picture, exchange a thought, or broadcast your feelings to hundreds or thousands of people. The networks are vast, the accessibility is unprecedented, and yet beneath all this technological closeness lies a deep hunger that is often unfulfilled. Human beings crave not just contact but connection, not just words but presence, not just information but intimacy. The modern world has given us the tools to reach each other instantly, but it has also challenged us to remember what it means to truly be with one another. At the heart of human connection is depth, and depth is something technology cannot manufacture. 1,000 text messages cannot replace the energy of sitting with someone in silence, feeling their presence beyond words. A curated profile cannot reveal the raw, unfiltered essence of a soul that longs to be seen as it is. We scroll through feeds filled with highlights of lives, yet often feel emptier the more we consume them. This is because the connection we are offered in these spaces often touches only the surface of who we are. It stimulates the mind, it entertains the senses, but it rarely nourishes the heart. To redefine human connection in this modern age is to recognize that presence matters more than proximity. You may be surrounded by hundreds of online acquaintances, yet feel alone because none of those interactions ask you to show up as your authentic self. And yet, a single conversation with someone who truly listens, who looks into your eyes, who asks you how you are and means it, can heal the ache of loneliness in an instant. It is not the number of people you are connected to that matters, but the quality of those connections. The modern world invites us to remember that depth is a choice. You can choose to skim the surface of every interaction, or you can choose to sink into the richness of one. But this remembering requires courage, because the culture of modern communication often encourages performance rather than authenticity. We are taught to post what looks good, to share what gains approval, to edit away what is raw. Yet human beings do not bond over perfection, they bond over truth. The stories that move us, the conversations that transform us, are never the polished ones. They are the ones where someone admits their fear, confesses their doubt, or shares their vulnerability. Redefining connection means daring to go against the tide of performance and instead choosing presence. It means asking yourself in every interaction, am I showing up as I truly am, or am I showing up as I want to be seen? In this era of digital abundance, there is also the challenge of attention. The human mind is pulled in countless directions, distracted by notifications, overwhelmed by endless streams of information. To offer someone your undivided attention in such a world has become an act of love. When you put down the phone, when you listen not just with your ears but with your heart, when you choose to be fully here, you create a sacred space where connection can blossom. The gift of attention is rare, and it is in its rarity that it becomes powerful. True connection is not built on constant contact but on conscious presence. The modern world also calls us to expand our definition of connection beyond the human realm. As the illusion of separation begins to dissolve, many are realizing that connection extends not only to friends and loved ones, but also to the earth, to animals, to the unseen forces of life itself. When you walk barefoot on the ground, when you breathe in the stillness of a forest, when you pause to feel the rhythm of the ocean, you are reminded that connection is not limited to conversation. It is the awareness of belonging to something larger, the recognition that your life is intertwined with all life. To redefine connection is to move beyond transactional interactions and step into relational presence, where every encounter, whether with a person, a tree, or a moment of silence, becomes meaningful. Another aspect of redefining connection in this time is learning to value depth over speed. The modern world glorifies efficiency, quick replies, instant gratification, but connection cannot be rushed. It unfolds slowly in the pauses between words, in the spaces where silence speaks, in the patience to understand rather than just respond. When you slow down, when you let the moment breathe, you invite connection to take root. This slowness is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that intimacy does not bloom in haste but in stillness. We must also confront the loneliness that often hides beneath the illusion of constant connectivity. Many people today are more connected than any generation before, yet they feel isolated because their connections lack authenticity. The pictures may show smiles, but the heart knows when presence is absent. To redefine connection means to honor the ache of loneliness as a signal that what you need is not more contacts but more authenticity. It means creating spaces where people can remove their masks, where honesty is safe, where truth is welcomed. The modern world does not lack tools for connection. It lacks the courage to use them for truth rather than performance. Redefining human connection is also about remembering the power of vulnerability. In a time when it is easier than ever to hide behind screens, to filter, to edit, to control how you are seen, the simple act of being real becomes radical. To say, "This is me, unfiltered, imperfect, human," is to open a door that allows others to do the same. And when both people step through that door, connection becomes something alive, something nourishing, something transformative. The modern world does not need more curated perfection. It needs more honest humanity. Ultimately, redefining connection in this age is about coming back to presence. It is about choosing depth over distraction, authenticity over performance, stillness over speed, truth over illusion. It is about remembering that what we long for is not more messages, more likes, more followers, but the feeling of being seen, heard, and understood. It is about choosing to create spaces of honesty in a world of masks, to offer attention in a world of distraction, to embody presence in a world of noise. When you choose this path, you not only transform your relationship, you transform the very way you experience life. When we step back and weave together the threads of friendship, loneliness, vulnerability, the illusion of separation, and the redefinition of connection in our modern world, what we find is a deeper truth about the human experience. We are not isolated beings moving aimlessly through life. We are fields of energy constantly influencing, shaping, and being shaped by the presence of others. Friendship reveals itself as more than companionship. It becomes an energetic exchange where authenticity resonates and nourishes the soul. Loneliness transforms from something we fear into a sacred invitation to meet ourselves in the quiet, to discover the depth we carry within when all external noise is stripped away. Vulnerability emerges as the bridge between isolation and intimacy, teaching us that the courage to be seen as we are is the very foundation of true connection. The illusion of separation dissolves as we awaken to the reality that what we do to another, we do to ourselves, and that we are far more united than we have ever been divided. And in this modern age, where digital noise often masquerades as closeness, we are being called to remember that real connection is not measured by numbers but by presence, not by perfection but by authenticity, not by speed but by depth. The full conversation is not only about Trevor Noah or about any one individual. It is about the shared human journey. It is about each of us realizing that the relationships we build, the silences we embrace, the truths we share, and the presence we embody are all part of a greater unfolding of consciousness. The invitation before us is clear: to move beyond surfaces and step into depth, to choose authenticity over performance, to cultivate friendships that expand our energy, to transform loneliness into wholeness, and to awaken to the unity that has always existed beneath the illusion of separation. When we live this way, connection ceases to be something we chase. It becomes the natural expression of who we are.